Well, good morning to the first on-the-road version of what's going on in the Suez. So, what happened last night in the Suez Canal? It's confusing. So, I was doing an interview with Australia News talking about the vessel when the word came out that she's afloat. And I've been very careful about this in saying this. She's been afloat the whole time. She's just been hung up on her ends with her bow on the east bank and her stern on that west bank, kind of rammed into Asia, sitting on Africa and dangling over the Suez. You probably heard that 1,000 times from me. I apologize. So what happened last night is they've been dredging along the port side of the vessel. That's the forward left side of the vessel, the upstream heading toward the Mediterranean side. So they've been excavating out there, and we knew from reports from the ship operator that they had excavated out the stern area on the starboard side. That's the back right side, back toward the Red Sea. They've gotten the prop free, they've gotten the rudder free. They brought in this massive, what they call an anchor tug. These things are designed to pull. Those tugs you've been seeing on the side are harbor tugs. They're great when the vessel is free floating, but they don't have the horsepower that this thing has. What this vessel does is drop one or two massive anchors in the middle of the Suez, off its bow, the front end. It then backs down toward the vessel, and it hooked up to Ever Given's stern. And it hooks up there and places itself right in between its anchors and the Ever Given. And what it does on a signal, which they did on high tide last night, and the high tides are hitting right at noon and midnight, right around there in Egypt time. Egypt is +2 off of standard time. What this vessel does is it pulls on the anchors with these massive winches. It pulls on the Ever Given with these winches on the stern, and then it kicks its drive in. So it's a ridiculous amount of force that it can exert. Something that normally can't be done just with a small tug. With the dredging that's been going on, with the clearance under the hull, they were able to pivot the vessel. The vessel was across the Suez. If the north part of the Suez, the north channel of the Suez is at 12 o'clock and the south channel is at 6 o'clock, the vessel was sitting with its front end, the bow, at 2 o'clock and its stern at 8 o'clock. What they've done is pivot the vessel. So now the bow's at 1 o'clock and the stern's at 7 o'clock. The stern's off the west bank, it's off Africa. It is floating in the channel. It is floating in the channel. And this is a huge success. Let me be clear about this. This is a tremendous success. One of the big issues on the vessel was the stress being exerted on it by hanging by its ends. That's now been alleviated. Not disappeared, but alleviated. Now with the stern free floating, that stress is minimized where it had been. So now it can basically float on its own. You still have stresses on it because it's still aground forward. It is still on the shallow side of the canal forward. There's been some reports of some rock outcroppings. If you look at my Twitter feed, there's a chart that shows those shell areas that it still has to get over. So she is technically afloat. She's been afloat the whole time. And technically the canal is open because now small vessels can pass. The Egyptian government have announced the canal being open, and I am not going to be surprised if they don't try to move a small vessel, potentially a warship or something, through the canal during the day today, just to signify that the canal's open. But let me be clear, it's not open to major commercial traffic. You can't get anything by. Vessel Ever Given is 400 meters long. The channel is only about 200 meters wide, and she's only freed up about 100-meter aspect of the channel. So yeah, you could squeeze big vessels by, but you would never do it. You wouldn't take the chance. Plus, the vessel displacements coming by would rock Ever Given, and you have a conceivable problem. What you have done with this is part one of the salvage. You've moved the vessel out into the stream. Now you can reset, and on the next high tide, which I think is what they're going to do, either midnight tonight or noon tomorrow, is reset to try to pull her off backwards, kind of pull her south into the canal. If they can get her off the bank, then she'll be free floating. They got a couple of concerns right now. They have to worry about the damage to the forward end of the vessel. You've eliminated the potential of the vessel breaking apart. That's pretty much gone now, so that's a good thing. But the thing you do need to worry about is if you pull her out into the channel, she could conceivably start flooding forward. If she starts flooding forward, she could go down in the channel, which leaves you bottled up again. The Egyptians have announced that they're going to tow her up into the Great Bitter Lake. That's a 20-mile tow. You're not going to tow this vessel very fast, obviously. It'll be almost a whole day tow, probably just going a couple of knots up the channel to get her out. It's less miles, about 10 miles down to Suez, but I think they'll go for the Great Bitter Lake. It's a protected anchorage, more secure, and that seems to be where they want to go. So she's afloat on the stern, but she's still aground forward. So great success. This is exactly what we wanted. They are way ahead of where I thought they were going to be. And again, I think that's because of the aggressiveness that the Egyptians are pushing to get this canal open. Normally a salvage operation would take much longer, but again, you have priorities here. When life is at risk or when huge economics are at risk, unfortunately, you tend to take more risk. And the risk here was with the vessel. It wasn't with risk of life, really. So normally what you would do in this situation is reassess the vessel, examine it, make sure you haven't damaged it in the move. You've ground the bottom, for example, on the pivot. You'd want to get in the double bottoms, and hopefully they have set those sensors up so everything's being monitored. So if anything floods, they should get automatic indicators about that. If everything looks good, they'll go ahead with the pull on the high tide. If the pull doesn't take place, they're reassessing still. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next here. So anyway, our first edition of what's going on in the Suez on the road. So stay tuned, and we'll keep you updated. Apologize for all the confusion. There was a lot of confusing reports that came out. So, but that's part of the news, and that's part of it. As a historian, I understand that. There's always conflicting reports. And one of the things you try to do is read the best information out there, get the first-hand information out there, and reassess it. So a good day, definitely heading toward the position where the canal looks like it's going to be open. I'm going to be interested to see if vessels keep heading for the canal. It looks like they are. One of the Ever Given sister ship is right off Lisbon right now, heading southbound. She's due to turn into the Mediterranean today. So if she still continues on, that's a good sign that things are getting pretty positive about it. So anyway, talk to you next time.